I'm sorry, Representative Hawkins. Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, sir. And I asked a similar question, thank you, Mr. Chairman, of colleagues presenting maps yesterday. What's the alleged or proposed political leaning of the maps, given that you were able to use partisan data in the drawing?
I've seen some reports from outside groups, but I can't cite that information off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Thank you. Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, I could point out, I guess, where, if you want to, let me just go through. Maybe I can answer the member's question.
Yeah, because sorry, I didn't have the stat pack.
But just let me, maybe, if I could highlight, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and what we'll do, Representative Hawkins will be recognized for a series of questions, and Senator Down, you got the floor to try to answer that first question.
So if you just consider the current Senate map, these are kind of the changes that, most of the changes that were made. So Senate District 1 and Senate District 2, those were the reversing of the pod choice. Senate District 1 is Senator Hannig's district. It is still competitive, but slightly more Republican. Senate District 2, Senator Sanderson's district, moves from safe Republican to competitive, leaning Republican. Senate District 7, Senator Lee's district in New Hanover is still competitive, but slightly more Republican leaning. Senate District 13, which is an open seat in Wake County, it will be competitive, but leaning Democratic. Senate District 18, Senator Bodie's current district, which is in the northern part of Wake and Granville. It was competitive in 2022, and it will still be competitive in 2024. Senate District 21, Senator McInnes's district, which was drawn in the same configuration as the 2021 map. It was not challenged by the plaintiffs in that proceeding, but was changed in the remedial phase to meet an arbitrary political outcome standard that we now know was erroneously adopted by the Supreme Court. So we did change that district to make it slightly more Republican leaning. And Senate District 42, which is an open seat in Mecklenburg County, will be competitive, leaning Democratic. That's in the southern portions of Mecklenburg County. So these are the only changes that have electoral ramifications in this map. There were, like I mentioned earlier, there were some sort of consensus changes that were made in Guilford, Durham counties, and then in Buncombe County, just for those configurations.
Thank you. And it looks like, for example, Senate District 1, fairly compact, and I can imagine that those folks have a lot in common, just, my working knowledge of the Northeast. But how do you propose the district meeting works in Senate District 2? How do you propose, what I was saying is that the Senate District 1, fairly compact, those people, could have things to talk about, right, that are similar, just based on my working knowledge of the Northeast. How do you propose a Senate District 2 meeting works? Like, what do those people talk about related to what they have in common, and, what communities of interest, like, what do they say to their Senate representative or their senator about what they have in common? What issues they're dealing with in the General Assembly that have commonalities? Because, again, Dare and Terrell could talk about similar things, and Currituck and Camden and Pasquotank. But Warren and Carteret, that's a much different discussion. So just wondering how you propose that the member, which is is a good member, could meet all those needs, because that's part of representation in Raleigh.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know if it would be helpful for staff to put up on the screen the current Senate map, but just for the representatives' information. So, when the Senate follows the Stevenson criteria, obviously our districts, our groupings are much larger than House groupings. So there are two grouping choices based on Stevenson. This is the grouping that was chosen in the first draw of the Senate map in 2021. So basically, it just more or less we're just flipping the pod, so to speak, between one of the two Stevenson groupings. I agree with you. It's along the coast. It's a very large district. Obviously, it would be a lot of travel time for that member. But even under the existing map, you'll have similar considerations. I think you'll be able to see. So that was one of the other allowable groupings, and we just switched the grouping to.
Representative Hawkins.
And again, and I know you all have already discussed this in the Senate chambers, but just working knowledge of Eastern North Carolina, that definitely seems like a much better fit, more compact, and connected to communities of interest, especially if for those who spend any time in Hyde and Dare, they know that they have things in common, versus the other way around. So that's just my commentary on it, because it doesn't change the electoral outcome with either configuration, but it's just sort of my 2 cents on how it appears to people, right? Because we all know that voters look at they do the eye test. They don't do the details like we do, and so they're just going to wonder, how on God's green are you going to represent that when you had that potential? So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.